I gotta stop doing that. I do it every time. Every damn time. All right, everybody, welcome. This is the fourth development update for Malison, the Cursed City. So, another really quick update this week. This one should be even shorter than last week's. And after the stream, I'm gonna go take a short break and take a walk, maybe maybe at 9 I'll be back or so. And when I'm back, I'll be playing Pathfinder Kingmaker for a few hours. I really want to get back into playing more of those CRPGs. I just haven't those are one of my favorite game genres, and I've barely played these in recent years because they take so much time. You know, you have to really set some time aside to play them. So yeah, I want to get back into playing more of those games because they're such a big inspiration for all the, for Malison for one, but just yeah. So yeah, I wanna get back to playing those more, and no time like the present. All right, but yes. In the meantime, let's actually get through this. Yeah, this should be like 10 minutes, like barely. There's yeah. So this week, I've continued working on some Chapter 1 encounter scripts. I'm almost done with Nab, the Kobold Thief's. Actually, I can show even some of that. Wait. The Kobold Thief, who teaches you the basics. It kind of shows you the ropes on stealing things. I'm almost done writing all of her dialogue here. There you go. So she's got quite a bit. The green lines are like the new lines that hasn't been revised yet. So this is all like the very, very new stuff. But yeah, this is all because she's got 3 different quests. I showed those last week, so I actually just put up a video of last week's update. So you can check that on YouTube if you're interested, if you haven't seen that. I go a little bit more. I go over all of her quests in that one and show the stuff that's left to be done. And so yeah, she's got first quest, you have to pickpocket a knife from somebody and give it to her. Second quest, you have to go inside the pub and steal a precious bottle from the pub keeper. And that's it's all this part here is all that quest. All the different dialogues for when you bring it. And then the biggest one is her third quest, which is to retrieve items from her stash, from her old house. And she's got different things to say for every item you bring back. And so yeah, there's quite a bit of stuff here. Wrote most of this yesterday and a little bit more today. And also, she's got a little thing after that. After you've done enough quests for her, she gets you. She can then sort of give you some pointers on how to join the Thieves Guild, which is sort of like the Chapter 2 sort of progression of her quest. Upping the ante a bit, joining a big organization instead of just dealing with one NPC. And so yeah. But yes, and after that, there's going to be the follow-up stuff that leads into the Thieves Guild quests and Chapter 2 content, which I'll be working on next month. Let's see what else. Oh yes, also at the start of this week, my friend Justin, who made Ketana Zero, he did a really thorough playtest of the game and had some great feedback on the game's prologue, especially. Its pacing issues and issues with the tutorials there, and I really love his feedback. He has a bit of an outsider's perspective, so it's really informative on how people less familiar with games of that genre, or games like CRPGs, how people less familiar with those would react to the game's mechanics and how they're presented. And yes, so I'm going to take a lot of his advice, a lot of his criticisms to heart, and I've already started on implementing some changes based on his advice there. A lot of the issues is that in the game's prologue right now, Actually, less so now. I've already done some changes, like I said, but the game front loads a lot of tutorials in the game's prologue. A lot of tutorials happen really quickly, and a lot of those tutorials are like really tedious stuff about menus. Just handling the game's menus, like handling items and your items, changing your equipment, managing different inventories between different party members and stuff like this. All kind of tedious menuing that forces you to deal with the game's fairly complex menus. I'll just show you if you're new. You know, this is an RPG. This is a CRPG with you know, there's you know, the equipment and the item menus, and it's a little, you know, there's a lot of numbers, there's a lot of things popping up and everything. So it's a little bit scary if you're not used to this kind of game that's really crunchy. That has a lot of mechanics, a lot of numbers, a lot of equipment slots, a lot of item types, and like exchanging items, and like you have a lot of inventories, you know? You have like two different kinds of like you have a main stash inventory where like items, you just store items for later use, and you have like the character stash, which is like the items you can actually use in combat. There's just a lot going on, and not only there's a lot going on, but you have to, like the game makes you learn this stuff before you've really had a chance to explore, right? It front loads all of this, right? So right now I can show a little bit, just to show a little bit what I mean. Right now, when you start the game's prologue, before you've even gotten started just walking around and like fighting monsters and stuff, you immediately have to deal with a tutorial on how to use items. Like immediately, like right away. And that's a really awful first impression. And I think he's right. Yeah, it is. So I've started just moving some tutorials around. I'm not simplifying the game in any way, really. I'm just changing how and when these things are introduced a bit, just to give the player a bit more of a chance to just kind of have a better vibe of how exploration works and everything before I start making them do homework, right? So I'm gonna skip the very beginning of the game here. So there's a part before this where you're climbing on a rope and there's an introductory battle, but right after this you end up here, right? And this here is the first place that you can actually get to explore. Now, it used to be that as soon as you walk up here, so you see, I didn't actually update her text here yet, but as soon as you walk up here, there was like the shadows closed in and you couldn't see anything. So right away, you couldn't see anything like of the world, and you had to search a crate here to find a torch and use the torch in order to be able to explore. So like before you even had to walk around a bit, you're already like shown a menu, and so you have to like deal with, you know, with like a bunch of items and exchanging it, you know. So I just basically pushed that further back in the prologue, so that, and also I made that the prologue is not dark. It's just a little dark, just enough to give it a little atmosphere, but not actually enough that it's a problem, right? And so now you get to like explore a little bit of the prologue, and you get to talk to some of those characters, and you get to fight some monsters. And right now I'm just kind of dashing past the battles, but, you know, there's a little bit to do first. And only after you've here I'm using a cheat to kill the monsters. But only after you've gone through some of those preliminary battles and, you know, examined a few things and spoken to a few characters, now I'm introducing some tutorials. And the first tutorial, instead of being a menu, instead of being like about your inventory and stuff, it is the tutorial on opening a locked door, which is a bit more interesting. It's less just menus and it's more just doing something, you know? It's showing you a mechanic for exploration instead of just a management mechanic. And I think that's a much better first tutorial to get, right? But yeah, here... I think it's actually skipped with tutorial here, but yeah, I'll need to figure that out. But yeah, this is where you're told how to pick a lock. And then, when you're inside that building, which before, by the way, was That was an optional building. Now you have to go in because now this is when you're taught how to use torches, right? So now this is the same tutorial that used to be at the very beginning. Now instead it's like maybe 10 minutes into the prologue after you've had the chance to walk around a bit. And that's where, there you go, you're told here that searching is noisy and attracts enemies, and then there, you found a torch, and there you go, you can simply pick it up, blah blah blah, right? So now you can pick it up, and now another change. This one is not done yet. I'll be doing that next week. Another change is that then when you'll go into your menu here, right now there's still a bunch of options here. I'm going to strip this menu bare for the prologue. This menu is going to have way fewer options. I'm going to remove the order option, which allows you to shuffle your party around. You don't need to know that now. The prologue isn't hard enough, and it's not complicated enough that your party order is important yet. So why have that option there, right? So I'll remove the order option. I'll remove the status option, which lets you know status effects active on all your characters. There's no status effects in the prologue. It doesn't matter, right? So yeah, let's strip all of this off. But a little bit more bold than this, I'm going to remove the equipment menu from the prologue. In the prologue, you're not going to be able to change your equipment on the pause screen. Just to simplify it further, because it's just not important yet. It starts to be important in Chapter 1. The prologue is just too easy. It's not a big deal if you can't change your equipment. So why introduce that now? You don't need to. So I'll push that to Chapter 1. There's going to be a whole little tutorial of it just a little later, just to kind of leave the player alone a bit. Leave the player to deal with one thing at a time, So yeah, I'll remove that menu entirely for the prologue. Instead, it's going to be unlocked when you reach Chapter 1, right? Now, there is a drawback to this. It does mean that if people start playing the game and don't see that they have an equipment, that might give people the impression that this is a really simple RPG with really few with no equipment, right? So I need to be careful about this, but I think it should be fine. I think that the fact that inside battles you can change weapons, I think that's going to give people the impression that, okay, there's more to this. It's just not, it's just simplified, right? So, but yeah, this is one worry I do have, that it might give people the wrong idea that this is a simpler RPG than it really is. Another thing I want to do is in the items menu. I'm going to simplify the items menu again just for the prologue. So for the prologue, I'm going to remove the stash. See this? The stash where you can store items you don't need right now. I'm going to remove this. Actually, it just crashed, so there's a bug I'll need to fix here. But I'm going to remove the stash, so the entire right-hand side of this menu is going to be empty. And I'm also going to remove being able to move items between your friends here. So you're not actually going to be able to select your friends. So you're only going to have one inventory in this menu during the prologue. And it's only once you reach Chapter 1 and once you start recruiting friends, that's when you're going to get introduced to exchanging items between your friends, right? So again, this is all about just simplifying the game as much as possible to only the parts you actually need in the prologue, right? Let's see. What is... Okay, just a moment. Just a moment. Sorry about that. Shit. Okay, sorry about that. That was that was the problem I mentioned before. Hopefully the stream is still okay. Yeah, Game Maker has an issue sometimes where if there's an error in the thing, I'm not gonna go into it. It was the minefield problem. I mentioned it before. I talked about it when it feels like you're playing Minesweeper when you're working. Anyway, not gonna go into that. That's a distraction. But yeah, I just had that crash. Okay, well, so that was one of the things I wanted to fix. One other element that was that came from Justin's feedback. Let me just launch this again so I can show this. I'll make a note to crop all of this dead air in the video I'll put up next week. So one of the thing he was talking about is that the game's reach system, the way that like when monsters are farther away, if you have something like a dagger, if you have a very short weapon, you're actually much less likely to be able to hit them. And as they get closer, daggers get better, but longer weapons get more unwieldy, right? So the game has this reach system. And right now, when you're playing, the game gives you all of the information you need to know the reach of your weapons and the distance of the enemies, but it's not very like visually natural, you know? It's just numbers. It's just telling you a number. It just shows you like, okay, your weapon has reached 3 and the enemy is at range 4, which is fine. Like, that's enough info for you to be able to figure it out, but it's not natural. It doesn't give you like an impression of it. It just needs to be presented better. And so, I have added a new little grid display in combat for when you're targeting an enemy that just makes it visually more clear what the reach of your sword is, or what the reach of a spear is. Let me show you that real quick. It's already in the game. It's just ugly right now. That's the main issue with it. Is that although it works, I think like it actually is a good idea and it's working. It is just kind of ugly, so I'll just need to fix that part. So let me just show you real quick with these two. You see these guys here? And now, this is what happens if I try to attack them with a sword. So you see the closest range is red. That means if I try to attack someone that is this close with the sword, it's kind of awkward to hit them. You know, it's my hit rate is going to be pretty low. Yellow here is like an okay hit rate, so this guy is actually at a yellow hit rate there. 72%. You're probably going to hit him, but you know, you do have a serious chance to miss or to do a glancing blow. And if they were standing here where it's green, it would be perfect. The reach would be perfect. So I'd be more likely to do a critical hit. I'd be less likely to do, you know. And I can change weapons. Actually, this I think is the same reach. Yeah, it's the same reach. But yeah, so Fritz has a dagger instead, so you'll see the difference there. So I'm going to attack with Pars, and oh, I hit twice. Now Fritz has a dagger instead, so you see the difference. With Fritz, the green is the closest range, the yellow is the second closest, and then it's red, and then it's worse. So Fritz right now has a 37% chance to hit this guy, and a 0% chance to hit the guy in the back, right? So there you go. You see the difference. And if he changed the weapon to the wooden staff, now, oh, actually, so now he's changed the weapon to the wooden staff, but it's made him, because he had to change weapons, it's actually made him, what's the word? Clumsy, right. So when you change your weapon, you don't lose a turn, but you're clumsy for one turn. For this turn that you changed a weapon in. So your hit rate is actually a little bit lower for that turn. But I missed. But this would be the accuracy you'd have otherwise. And now that he's closer, now my accuracy with the sword is still at 81%. He's closer. But now the accuracy with... Oh, right, I did change weapons, so now I want to change weapons back to the dagger. And with the dagger, that's 73% chance now. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, it's just... So I'm going to improve this. I'm going to make this look better. Because right now, so here, now this guy is in the green. And in the green, 90% chance to hit. So that's way, way better, right? Now, again, this looks kind of ugly. That's the big drawback. But what I'll do is, instead of showing the entire grid like this, I'm going to be making like a triangle. So I'm going to make... I'm going to show only a part of that grid in a pattern of a triangle from the person attacking to the target. So that way you're going to see like either a triangle or just like a rectangle with perspective on it. And I think that's going to look a lot, it's going to look a lot less obnoxious. Yeah. So yeah, that's that change that's coming. And I'll also be working on moving a lot more tutorials from the prologue to chapter 1 like I was talking about. Now, previously I hesitated to put more tutorials in chapter 1 because chapter 1 is open. It can be explored in a lot of different ways. So I was thinking some people could miss some tutorials the first time they play depending on where they go. So that was one reason why I put so much tutorials in the prologue instead, right? But I decided that it's not that big a problem after all because Chapter 1's early alternate paths are really hidden and they're hostile. So I think the vast majority of players will probably go through the core path for the start of Chapter 1. So it's probably fine to put the tutorials there, right? Like a lot of the secondary paths in Chapter 1, like you can find them if you search, if you're really curious, if you're really thorough in your exploration. But once you go there, you realize, oh, this is a dangerous place. I don't want to be here. And they're all kind of designed that way. They're all designed to kind of scare you into exploring this part later, right? And I think that should help in making sure that most people just go through the basic path for the start of Chapter 1, and so they tend to go through the tutorial without actually forcing them to. And I think I'm good with that. I think that's fine. I think that's acceptable. But yeah, let's see. Let's move on. Oh yes, also this week I had a meeting with Devolver about the game's marketing. We talked a bit about how we want to present the game, when and how to formally introduce it and announce it and all that. I won't go into too many details further than this, but it was good. I love working with them. One of the things I've been wondering about for a bit, and I think I brought it up in the Discord before that question, and it's definitely something we brought up in that meeting, is how I want the game to be perceived genre-wise, right? Because Malison, it's like a cross between a CRPG and a survival horror game, and visually it has the vibe of like a JRPG-inspired indie horror game, right? So what to focus on? What part of the game do we want to put forward the most, And it's a very important decision to make because it's going to have a big impact over people's expectations of the game. Getting this right is really important if we want to make sure we can reach as many of the right players as possible, right? Like, if you give people the wrong impression, you'll get a bunch of players who were expecting a different game playing the game, and a lot of those might be disappointed if they were expecting something else. And also, you might push away a lot of players who would have loved the game if they tried it, but just didn't realize that it was a genre of game that they would have liked, right? So yeah, getting this right is really crucial. I think we've gotten a pretty good understanding of the way forward there, so that's good. But yeah, that's basically the recap for this week. Like I said, a lot shorter this week. This is probably going to be how long most of the updates are going to be going forward. So coming up next week, it'll just be a continuation of the work from this week. I have more of the prologue spacing issues I want to deal with. I want to move more of those tutorials later. I also of course have more chapter 1 writing work to finish up. And yeah, that's it. There you go. That was the fourth update. if any of you got questions, I can answer a few quick questions. And then I'm gonna go take a little walk, and then when I'm back, I'll be playing Pathfinder Kingmaker. I'll just wait a few minutes to see if anyone's got questions. Seems all right. All right, seems like we're good on questions. All right. Okay, so yeah, that'll be all for this week's update. Now, as usual, tomorrow I'm not going to be streaming on Mondays, but I should be back on Tuesday. And actually, I might actually stream Pathfinder tomorrow. I might just do a game stream. We'll see. We'll see if I feel like it. But yeah, Tuesday is gonna be the next development stream, and yeah, I should be back on doing some writing work and quest work and all that. All right. Okay. But yes, so I'm gonna go take a walk, and I'll be back at around 9. So in like 30 minutes or so. And yeah, I'll be playing Pathfinder. So if you're interested in seeing that, see you then. And otherwise, take care.